Good evening, and welcome to the Watchmen's Report. I'm Cody Higley, and tonight, as always, we're joined by Jason Foreman, and we have a special guest with us here, Damian Greenawalt. Now, you may have remembered Damian being on the show when he announced that he was running in the Republican primary for state representative of the 86th district. Well, that didn't quite pan out on the petition side of things, but Damien is a really cool guy. He's a resident of the city of Marion. He's a entrepreneur. He actually created all the swag here that we have on the Watchman's Report. You can see Jay looking extra sexy in that white hoodie and the white hat. And I, of
It's
course,
my
have.
emergency hoodie, man. Like he brought it to me at the rally Saturday because I was freezing because my dumb ass didn't wear a coat. And he,
He's like,
Javen had a sweater too.
yeah, he's like, I don't have a sweater. It's freezing. I wasn't very smart. I didn't think it out. I'm like, I got you.
Hey, that's what you need, when you're in a pinch, you need a guy like Damian Greenawalt there to bail you out. So we really appreciate it, Damian, and you do a really good job. I mean, this
Yeah.
this this stuff is high quality. So it's A&G Design. Is that the name of the company?
Yeah, design and print. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you do like custom orders for people?
Yeah, I've been slowly working on it. But yeah, I can do pretty much anything. I could take a screenshot of your face right now and put it on a t-shirt if I really wanted to. Like
You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that, believe me. You don't want to do that. But no, check out the website there. Yeah, they're A&G Design and Print. We've got links on our feed. Is it on Marion Watch as well, the
Um,
webpage?
it's on the roll-in screen. I've got to get on the web page. I've been going back through the financial stuff and trimming it down to bite-sized pieces so that I can release it on Facebook in response to some ranting that has gone on recently.
Yeah. So if you need something, check it out because why go to some heartless corporation for your gear when you can go to somebody right here in Marion, um, who is a hell of a guy like Damian Greenwald to get your stuff. So I highly encourage you to check that out. All right. So tonight, folks, is going to be, I think we titled this The Watchman's Report Unchained. And it's just going to be a grab bag of topics and discussion. There's lots to talk about at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level. So we'll probably jump here, there, and everywhere as we try to traverse the madness that is ensuing at all levels of civilization. So, where do you guys want to start first? You want to start locally, just start lowest,
I was
and
gonna
then
say we
work
can
our
either
way
start
up?
from the top and work down or start from the bottom and work up. But either way, we can
Let's
climb
start
or
from the bottom. And the bottom of the barrel is the city of Marion, the county of Marion. Yeah, let's start there. All right,
That's
so
a handful
city
of
of
crazy.
Marion, yeah, city of Marion recently announced a couple of revenue generation schemes. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I can't remember what day that came out. They announced the Lincoln Park Aquatics Center is going to be raising its membership fees and its daily admission. So, for example, an adult admission was $7 previously. Now it's going up to 9. And the family membership, which covers, I think, a family up to 6 people, is increasing from $275 for the season. Now that's the non-early bird special. They do give early bird specials if you buy your membership. I think before May 1st or April 30th or something like that.
that's the
So the
projections, right?
non-early bird is going from like 275 up to 315. Now, our friend over the Swamp Fox did a nice write up here with some financial analysis as he is quite inclined to do. So check out Swamp Fox's page on Facebook if you haven't done that. Like it, share it. But you can see here the revenues between daily admissions since 2022 and memberships. Um, Not much. And actually, they've fallen off a cliff. Now, that wasn't COVID. So they did shut down the aquatic center, I think in 2021 or something like that. But to go from daily admissions of nearly 85,000 in 2022 and then drop down to 41 in 2024, and memberships kind of staying stagnant for the most part. I mean, slightly increasing, since 2022. But fact of the matter is, guys, the aquatic center cost a ton of money to build. They're still paying for it in the form of bond payments, and it's supposed to be operated as a business-like activity. So it's supposed to be breaking even, but it never has, and it probably never will, no matter what they try to do. It's going to be a loser, and when that happens, they have to bail it out from the city's general fund. And the increases that they made to the daily admissions and to the memberships aren't going to come anywhere close to covering the difference, the loss. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, if you're gonna put something together to try to increase fees, shouldn't you do it to the point that you're gonna break even, or add something, like come up with something additional to actually try to cover the loss?
I
But
mean,
this doesn't do it.
yeah, I think you got a good point. I think the biggest concern is that it doesn't break even. It's just a loss. Like you can up the prices, but then nobody's going to show up because you got extreme prices, and there's got to be some policy balancing there. I mean, the budget's still at a what 4 million deficit. Even raising that's like cutting the council salaries. That was what 0.002% of the whole budget. I mean, you're cutting areas that they're not even beneficial for the overall aspect of it.
No, exactly. Like you said, when they did cut that, they reduced, or I guess delayed the raise. They delayed it. They didn't completely remove it. So they kept the council salaries at 9,000 instead of increasing them to 12. But there's only 9 members of council. So you're doing these little picking any changes when at the same time you are increasing police budget by nearly $2 million. Fires, I think, went up by almost $1.5 million. You name the department, and they increased the expenditures on salaries and benefits, and all because there's 4 public sector unions that cover the workers for the city of Marion. 3 of them have contracts that expire at the end of the year. So do not tell me that they did not write that budget with the expectation of giving the union everything that they wanted for their salaries and benefits. All the while, the city of Marion is in fiscal distress and has a declining population. So there's absolutely no reason, there's no justification whatsoever for those double-digit increases between what they actually paid out in 2025 and what they're going to be paying out in 2026. So they put all these little increases, and they're substantial in their own right. I mean, like these aquatic, it's like 20% change, or 20% increase. But I don't think it was well thought out. I think it was, we don't want to fight with the public sector unions. We don't want to lay people off that work for the city. So we're just going to go and milk everything that we possibly can from the residents of the city of Marion. And that's why it was so frustrating that that budget passed. And I got to give a shout out to our boy Chuck Norris, Ralph Smith, on council for standing strong and voting against that. And then he was joined by Thad Smith and Aaron Rollins. So they did the right thing. Now, I think that some of the other people, Pam Larkin, our friend Pam Larkin, she'd be another one. They were trying to, I think, put the pressure on them and say, we need to do this because we have to submit this to the state of Ohio by April 1st. And if we don't meet our deadline, then the state could come in and take over. And if you guys pass this right now, we can always amend it later. Well, if you believe that, if you believe that they're going to amend it and cut spending after it's already been passed, you know, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona that I'll sell you. It doesn't happen, does it, Damien? You're a young guy, but man, you're wise beyond your years, and you know that when government says something, they don't mean it.
Actions speak a whole lot louder than words, and I'll tell you what, if we go back 2 decades for the Marion City Council, the actions just aren't there. I mean, I'm not even trying to single any one direct person out. I'm talking over the whole course of that time. Like, there was just a lot of poor decisions there. I mean, common sense too. You know, you got a budget deficit. Actually, Kevin Davidson, he was he was the only one to vote against the deficit. And
for the county, yeah.
Yeah, and you're talking, I mean, for county level, I mean, you're talking, so what do we have in reserves? Like 16 million? So when you're talking like I don't know what the deficit for the county was off the top of my head, but
$4.5 million is what the county signed off on.
But if you're talking a $16 million reserve, you're literally eating up 25% of that whole reserve fund. So you got 4 years or less to figure something out. And I just think that could have been a little, I guess if you're going to pass a budget, do it like 10% or something. That way you have a long time to work with it. I mean, that's like the national budget. Like, that, it's just crazy.
Yeah, so the aquatics center situation, as Cody knows, Jacob's not really involved in our day-to-day operations, but I'm sure he probably has a good idea, has always operated, you know, in some sort of a deficit since, it looks like from the records, around 2011. What do you guys have to say about that particular aspect? There's a lot of this going on from the 80s onward.
It's an enterprise fund. An enterprise fund is something that goes beyond the scope of what local government historically ever did and should ever do. But they say, well, you know what, because people like to swim and we want to have recreation opportunities for, you know, the people of Marion, the kids, and all that emotional argument and everything. Then they say, well, you know, we are going to engage in a business-like activity. And that's how they sell it. They come in and they say, this is something that government really shouldn't be doing, but we're going to do it. But we promise taxpayers we will manage it like a business and it'll break even. They're not looking to make profit. So that's not a concern like it would be in the private sector, where your primary goal is to your shareholders and to actually turn a profit. So, but that's what they do. They come in there and they say, oh yeah, this this may have an initial investment in the actual infrastructure, capital improvement, line items, that sort of thing. But we've planned this out and it's going to be self-sustaining. So the admissions, the membership fees, the sales in food and beverages, that sort of thing, will be enough to cover its expenses.
Did you see that?
Because government never does anything right, and it doesn't give a crap about being responsible. It doesn't know how to run business. So when you have all these people who are forever career politicians, or they work in the public sector as a police officer or sheriff's deputy, or you name it, fireman, they don't know shit about running a business, nor do they care to know, because they can always go to the good old taxpayer to get bailed out. Go ahead, Damien. Sorry.
No, you're good. So like I was looking, or as Jay was going through the budget on the article, the school resource officer fund was even at a deficit.
Yeah,
So,
this is a historic problem. It's been going on since, I think the earliest audit we have is 83. Tina Fry went down to Columbus and stormed the archives and got us a whole bunch of pictures of the 80s and 90s audits, and that's where we pieced all this together at. It's insane. Go ahead, sorry.
But I was just saying that that's just crazy. Like, I mean, that was obviously like 2007 or 8 that one was in, but like just to have even the smallest department at a deficit, like you got to be kidding me. Like, at what point where do the schools start paying for those resource officers? I guess, do they not have contracts?
I don't know enough about that situation yet.
Yeah, I'm not too knowledgeable in as far as like how the police department and schools work together, but it's just crazy to have a deficit, especially when those officers are making like 80,000, 60,000, 90,000. We have 7 majors, 7 lieutenants. There's quite a
right.
Like, who needs?
Yeah, and you can check all the police budgets. Swamp Fox has that up as well as
the Swamp likes to dig in the numbers. Yep.
Staffing levels for the Marion Police Department, so you can get all that information as much as you want to get into by checking out that page. But the bottom line is, yes, all these government entities have lived beyond their means for years, and they have no real accountability, because if there was accountability, they would be making substantial cuts, and that would include layoffs. So they would go to the union, and I'll give them, we've been critical as a collective organization against the Schertzer administration and his 16-year reign as mayor. But when they went through the after effects of the Great Recession of 2008, they actually did make substantial cuts. They did lay people off. They did go to the unions and kind of put pressure on them. This administration is not doing that. This administration is basically doing everything but that. So going to the taxpayers, looking at cutting different services, that sort of thing. And not to say that these increases shouldn't have been done every year. That's the other thing. So the city is pointing out when they're sending these letters for changes to sanitation or the aquatic center, and we're probably going to see some additional ones here coming out very soon. They're citing that, the aquatic center fees haven't changed since 2014. Today's letter, when they sent out the increase for sanitation, they said the same thing. It hasn't increased since 2014. That's a dereliction of duty by the Schertzer administration. So That's true. And that's fair to say that those should have been looked at either by the mayor, Scott Schertzer, or by whoever his service director was at the time. And there was a few of them under Schertzer during that 16 years. And they should have been adjusted.
Yeah.
And again, if you're running things intelligently, like a business, like a private enterprise, private entity would, you would adjust things based on inflation. You would look at your costs. You would say, hey, just like Damien, if you know this, and you're how old are you? 20?
28. I'll be 29 this year.
Okay. So but when you engage in entrepreneurism or your own business, and you set your prices this year and you say, okay, I can get this sweatshirt for this price from this supplier. This is what it costs for the screen printing, whatever I need for that. And my profit margin is this. Then you say, okay, I'm going to sell this sweatshirt for $30 or whatever it is. Well, then next year or later that year, your suppliers increase because of inflation. So instead of, buying the sweatshirt for $15, they're now going to charge you 20 or whatever. Then you got to raise your prices or it's going to cut into your profit margin. And if you don't raise your prices because you think, oh, well, this might put a hamper on people wanting to buy, then you got to have enough padding in that profit margin. Otherwise, you're going to go out of business. So that's the reality of how the world works. But it doesn't work that way for government because government can go and say, oh, we're going to increase fees or we're going to increase taxes. And when they go for tax increases, they always use emotionally charged arguments. They'll say, oh, think of the children or think of the old people or think of this group, and that's how they operate. Uh, or typically in the situation with cities and counties, they'll screw with you with safety. So they'll say, "Oh, we're not going to have it." At the county level, the sheriff did that back in 2000. It was Tim Bailey back in 2010, 11, 12. Where I don't have enough men. We had cuts. We don't have enough people to go out and patrol the county. So pretty soon, people hear those arguments and then they say, "Oh man, if something happens to me, then what am I going to do? I'm not
Right.
gonna, there's no sheriffs out patrolling the county and stuff." So then they say, "Well, if you vote for this levy, this tax increase, whatever it is, then we'll be able to put men back on there." When in reality, they probably could continue to provide core services. They know they have you by the balls and they're just squeezing hard, and that's how it works.
I was gonna say, they say pass that levy, and then they might hire one or two guys, but they're also funding into themselves a nice 2-3% raise, or there's there's always an increase in salary for anybody up the chain of command, or that if you look at the salary budgets for the police department and stuff, that's like their biggest expense. The average was like 100,000 per officer plus. So that's a lot of money.
It really is. And if you have children, you ask them, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" If they say anything other than a public sector employee, then smack him in the face. Say, "No, you want to be a public sector employee. That's how you live the fat life. That's how you live high on the hog, is work for the government." Screw that about starting your own business and being innovator, being a producer, somebody that actually contributes to society. No, 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 no. We don't want that. Be a government parasite living off the taxpayers' teat. That's what we want. We want our kids having that as their dream.
I mean, shoot, 2% a year, 20 years, you get 40% of what's for example, the Marion commissioners, they get 86,000 or 81,000 or something like that. So if you do the math on that, even if you did 40% of 80,000, that's 32,000 a year. So they're almost making the average salary in a pension. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
not to mention
what do you have to show for it? Swamp Fox actually, when he posted the commissioner pay increases, he put in there just hypothetically, like, this should be treated. There should be a base salary, and then a performance bonus, or maybe 2 performance bonuses. So if you end the year, you can cut your base salary like way down, and then if they end the year without a budget deficit, then they get maybe another $15,000. And if they end the year and they actually cut spending or decrease taxes, they get another 15,000. That's how we got to start thinking about these government workers and politicians. Instead of allowing them to set their own pay scales and give themselves fat increases, just like that, they're getting a nice bump for 2027, and then in 2028 they're getting a 5% increase. How many private sector employees get 5% increases? Not very many.
Right.
The average is typically set maybe 2% if you're lucky.
Yeah, I got 2.3% this year. I
That's
think is what it
mean.
amounts to.
It's ridiculous, but most people have no clue. They have no clue. They have no clue that the people in the state house, passed this for all the commissioners, county commissioners in the state of Ohio. They have no idea what a county commissioner does, and that's another valid question, I think, is this is compensation that you would expect the recipient to be working their butt off full time. Is that happening? I mean, when they sign on to a 2026 budget that has $4.5 million deficit, and then they do an interview with one of the commissioners, Mark Davis, and he goes on there and says, asks the question, why did you vote for that? I don't know, and why did you guys have a $4.5 million budget deficit? Well, we spent more than we brought in. And then he says, well, I don't know, like finance and budgeting, that's not my thing. That's not my strong point. I'm more of a social butterfly. So if somebody has, a party, or if there's a good cocktail in the room, I'll be right there. But if somebody has budget worksheets or invoices, anything like that, don't come to me. I'll just rubber stamp it. I'll get that rubber stamp out that says approve. But I'm here to have fun. And then that's market. That's who you have as a commissioner, making currently $75,000 a year, and whoever replaces him is going to be making 80-something thousand dollars a year. We have to expect better from these people. We have to demand it. Your ass better be working, finding solutions to cut spending and to be responsible. When these departments come, these county departments come and say, oh, we want to spend this, we want to do this, we want to add this. No. Maybe you'll do it, but you need to think it through. You need to plan. You can't just go to the meeting and say, approve that appropriation. And then that's how you get to the end of the year and you're freaking broke. Damien.
I was going to say, I lost what I was going to say there for a second, but, no, I was going to say, well, daggone, now I'm a little upset that I lost what I was going to say.
That's okay. I can rant for a minute. So this business of people calling us. What are they calling us? I keep forgetting because I don't really care. But what's the nicknames, Cody?
I don't know.
Propaganda. There's
Oh
other
yeah,
ones
yeah, yeah,
too. All tabloids.
yeah.
Trying to start shit. No. So I would put this team, including the former law enforcement officials that are on the team, directly against any investigative reporter in the state of Ohio. All we do is research. So if any of them want to come on and chat nicely, not ranting and using the F word and the GD word and calling people's wives whatever and craziness, you're more than welcome to come on and debate us because we have the receipts for everything we publish.
Yeah, where do you get this? I mean, nobody is spending the amount of time, effort, and energy that we do here on the Watchmen's Report, Marion Watch. Swamp Fox is constantly digging through and publishing original research, original articles. That doesn't exist.
Right.
So if you want to try to get news or you want, I mean, even the Marion Star never did that sort of thing. The Marion Star would go to somebody, ask questions of an official or something, and then that's what they would publish. Now they kind of still operate under that modus operandi, but it's behind a paywall anyway. So you're not
Right.
going to
I
be able
like
to
Abby. I
yeah,
think
and
she's a
I'm
pretty
not
good
I'm not
journalist.
shitting
Like,
on that. I'm shitting on her corporate overlord
right.
that that's the only way that they can operate is to have a paywall and to demand that you pay a subscription fee. You're
Right.
getting this shit for free. So
Right.
this is a lot of work. I know the amount of time that I put into things. I know the amount of time that Jason puts into things and other people in the group. And it's a lot and for nothing, for free, just because we care. We're trying to have, I know that's my motivation. My
Yep.
motivation is to try to actually have a positive impact. And I'm a genuine conservative. I don't hide that at all. Like, I'm trying to show people what true conservative principles are, especially fiscal conservatism, because that's what I believe in. And I think that's what this country, it's crucial that that's how we do things. So
I
it's
mean,
lost. It's not
I'll
out
just,
there. You've got
I'll
these
just,
Republicans who are supposed to be conservatives, and they're giving us a bad name because they're not conservative in the slightest. They're
I'll just say
rhinos,
it like,
Republican in name only. And they do all this big government crap that is just ruining our potential and our future. And then they're labeling it conservatism. It's not. It's not. The stuff that you hear here about managing budgets responsibly, cuts to spending, layoffs when needed to public sector employees. That is fiscal conservatism. So, sorry, Jay.
Oh, I
no, you're
just
fine. So I'll say one more thing. I'll let Damien go on a rant. So basically what we're getting from the Citizen Network, which is not a small network. A lot of the public, I think they're starting to remember how big this network actually is. It numbers, depending on the, who's available and stuff, right around 150 to 190 citizens. That's locally. That doesn't include the people we talk to in Florida and Texas and California and Maine and New York and Indiana and all the other states we talk to, IT professionals, financial professionals. The point is that when we hear this nasty rhetoric and actual officials calling us, whatever they're calling us, I don't even care. I don't even listen to it because it's propaganda. It's because they can go on there and rant and nobody's going to pull up a receipt. Am I
Yeah,
correct in saying so? Right.
right. Because there's nobody else out there that's putting in the work. They literally just go to somebody and say, "Hey, Jay, I hear you're corrupt, or I hear you're spending beyond your means. You want to say something about that?" And then they'll just give a statement. Okay, that's
Right.
journalism. No, no, that's a component of journalism, but investigative journalism is somebody that's smart enough, has the ability to do the research and the analysis,
Right.
and to say, okay, this is what this person says, but this is what the numbers show.
Right.
That's what we do here.
Right.
And
We're
we don't
serious
need
about
to,
it too.
yeah, and we try to get public information requests filled. They're not good about turnaround time. So unless you actually have a connection with somebody that in an elected position, that they will individually give you information or give you a statement, which we post that stuff all the time.
Yep.
You know, you just did one with a quote from our boy Ralph Smith.
Yep. I just put it in the
Jay.
comments too. It's great.
Yeah. So I mean,
Actually,
that's that's the best
MPD.
you can get.
MPD has been excellent. Their turnaround time on public records requests, to me anyway, is usually within hours. Matt Bales has been excellent. No problems with him. I haven't heard too much out of Jay, but I haven't really engaged him too much. Bill's turnaround time on responding to me is excellent, usually the same day. He's a very busy man. All the council members that we've reached out to are excellent. They respond immediately. If I go to them with one of their constituent concerns, they address it either through me or directly with their voting population. Pam, all those guys, really. I mean, I've talked to all of them, really, with the exception of the newer ones. We'll get to that. Mary seems to be a little shy, but I do see her at events, and she's nice and pleasant, so no problem.
Mary's really cool. Yeah. No, I mean, Marion City has some really good people on there. You know, there's a lot of work to be done, and there's aspects of the government that could do a lot better. There's different individuals that could be doing a lot better, but I
All
don't know
right,
what to say.
Damien, what do you want to rant on?
So I'm actually making notes as we're going here because that way I don't forget it. So, anyways, what you were saying about the unions allowing to, well, let me start with the first thing closest to what you just said. Public record request time. I can also second that and tell you that it can take up to, if a department wants to be very procrastinating, they can legally take up to like 90 days per request. So, and that's not even counting like the time it takes to communicate in between that, because like they could be like, well, what do you mean? And then you have to re-explain everything out to specify what you mean. And so it can take a while for that. Like, you are absolutely correct. And so unless you absolutely know somebody that is, pretty public working and, is very people friendly, I mean, you get people that are hard up for their job or, just don't care, then you can take up to 90 days per request. And, a year's 365 days. So that's quarter of a year. But second, unions allow for layoffs and economic hardships. And I don't know if you would qualify $4.5 million in a deficit as a economic hardship, but I'd say you're towing pretty close to it.
Yeah.
Aside from that, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about it, but if you watch the council meeting at the last, was it the last one or the one before? One of the prior council meetings, they discussed about appropriations and, what happens if we don't allow it. And then Mayor Collins had said, oh, well, we can't pay our bills or we can't pay our loan and this and that. And then, if I ain't mistaken, council president, I forget her name. It's
Mary
Stoneburner.
Yeah, Stoneburn. She had said that it was her or the law director. One of them had mentioned that somebody, they can make a motion. I think Mr. Smith had asked about it, and they said you can make a motion to amend it. You could always motion for the very. What's like, for example, what's the salary cost? What's the cost for the loan? Everything else, figure it out. let's fix the budget, and then if you want more money, once the budget's fixed, we can talk about more money.
Right.
But hey, we should have amended those appropriations to cover bottom line expenses. No overtime, no extra government outreach program, no I don't know what kind of programs they got going on. I know the Marion City has a lot going on for as small of a city as it is, but I mean, like, fix the budget first. That should be the concern. I mean, there's a lot of areas where the city can make smart decisions, and they don't have to fire the whole police department. They don't have to fire the whole water park department, or they don't have to completely cut something or gut it, but make smart, rational decisions with it. I mean,
Right.
If you got to cut one or two people, you have to cut one or two people. If you have to tell a lieutenant that they can come back down to an officer for a couple years until we figure something out, you demote him to an officer for a couple years to save that. I'm sure it's like a $30,000-$40,000 difference between a higher up ranking officer from a lower one. But I mean, you just have to find those cuts. And I'm not saying, hurt people and their livelihood and this and that, but and that's where you get like the emotional appeal, like you were saying. Oh, well, we need people to not, or we need to prevent robberies and this and that, and looking at it from like an emotional appeal aspect or like a worry aspect or something like that. I just left my train of thought again, but we just got to make smarter decisions overall. You don't have to be some extremist and go in with an axe chopping down a whole forest, for example. I mean, cut out the bad trees, fix the place up. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, it just seems like I don't know who is arguing for these positions to prevent the layoffs or who is arguing for this, but service directors, if you can't figure it out, terminate them, find a new one. I mean, it's that simple. If they can't figure something out and follow the group to better the city as a whole and keep the citizens from paying out the rear end and taxes and everything else, then I mean, it's very frustrating. I get it too. Like, there's a lot of smart decisions that can be made here. You don't have to make all of these drastic, extreme decisions. There are small things you can do that save tons of money down the road.
Yeah. No, and if you look into the history of unions, I mean, unions served a purpose. I'd be the first to admit you don't want people to be exploited in their labor and that sort of thing. But there should not, in my personal opinion, if you look at the history of public sector unions, so unions that cover employees who are employed by government entities and public organizations, they should never have been allowed to unionize, because that's what happens is they have the ability to basically take over. And
what else is crazy
the burden
about
is on the taxpayer. Then it's not some tycoon that owns some private company. It's spread out collectively amongst the population of a city or a county, and then they can exploit it using tax levies, tax increases, what have you. But that's where it's at. And when you look at it, I know I brought that up during our last show, as far as when we were interviewing Stephen Wolf, who's running for state rep of the 86th district. Check out that show if you didn't get a chance to see it. But if you had a food pyramid, everybody's seen the food pyramid with grains and vegetables and dairy and all that good stuff. They taught us that when we were in elementary school. It'd be like having the biggest chunk of that food pyramid be public sector employees. That's not, those people public sector employees, for whatever good they do, they don't create anything. They're not producing a product. They're not anything tangible. So that's not sustainable. But when you look at the breakdowns of top employers in the city of Marion, you've got number 2, I think, is the Marion City Schools. Number 3 is the city of Marion. So and number 1's hospitals. You got people that are employed at the hospital taking care of, the ill, the old, the infirm, and then you've got public sector workers. Like, that's not a good economic base. It's not. You want majority of your workers to be employed in the private sector in a variety of different industries. But that's not where we're at. That's not where we're at in this growth, the age of big government that we find ourselves in, that we've been living in for the past 60 years. That food pyramid has been tipped upside down. It should be public sector employees or that little sliver up at the top. And then the big ass part of that pyramid are different groups from the private sector. But those groups don't exist anymore for the most part, unless they're pushing papers or they're dealing out food and beverages. Or in Marion, if they're selling cigarettes and vapes. That's pretty much our private sector employment. It's all these damn vape shops that are coming up everywhere. Like,
But I think that plays into like state and national stuff as well, because you got a lot of like big companies that will outsource their labor to other countries because it's cheaper. Call centers, for example. It's just
it is. It's
we got to get more stuff going for us, really.
There is a national component to that for sure, and you can't discount that. Trade policies, monetary and fiscal policies by the federal government, but you can look at local policies, the implementation of like the municipal income tax, the state income tax. I mean, the state of Ohio only had a income tax beginning in 1972. Historically speaking, that is the blink of an eye. But yet most people don't even know that, because none of us were born before 1972. So to us, that's normal. And most of the listeners out there, probably, even if you were alive in 1972, you weren't paying taxes in 1972. You'd have to be an old effer on this show if you, didn't pay state income taxes, but, we're old enough to. So we have to look at that, and we have to say, what was the impact on that? I can tell you what the impact was. Government at the state level doubled its budget from before the implementation of the state income tax to after the implementation of the state income tax. So they grew the size of government substantially as a result of getting all that additional money. And the city of Marion was the same way with the implementation of the municipal income tax and its gradual growth. And the county of Marion increasing sales taxes. So the result during that period of time, yeah, you had a lot of trade policies and things that were not good at the national level, and I'll freely admit that. But at the local level, we did our own thing here in the state of Ohio and in our counties and in our cities that drove away business. And where did they go? They went to states like Tennessee that don't have a state income tax. They still don't have a state income tax to this day, and Tennessee is booming. They have a hell of a lot lower property taxes. So companies went to the South and other areas, relocated from high tax, high regulatory areas, bureaucratic areas, to those areas that were not. And the result of that was kind of a economic stagnation or death for cities like Marion, and growth for towns and cities in Tennessee and Texas and Florida and places like that. So stuff everybody needs to think about. The goal should always be to decrease the size of government. If you're a conservative, that should be your ultimate goal. That way you can give tax reductions. And the whole thing is with that, folks, the whole thought behind that is that we want you to be able to keep more of your money that you earn. And we believe, the theory believes, that if you have more money, you are going to invest it more wisely, more efficiently than some government bureaucrat. Because the government bureaucrat is basically taking your money in the form of taxation, paying themselves for the privilege of doing that. They got to pay you a salary for all these bureaucrats that they hire. And then they're investing that reduced tax dollar amount that they confiscated from you. They're investing it in something that probably is wasteful 9 times out of 10. So again, when this country, when the state of Ohio, and when the city of Marion and the county of Marion were the most prosperous is when government was small, taxes were low, and the people were able to benefit from the fruits of their labor. Right. That is conservative fiscal policy. Nobody articulates it. I am an endangered species. I realize this, but it is a winning argument. It is truth. It is light in the midst of darkness. So don't let anybody tell you that is not true.
And you know, when you said about when you mentioned the commissioners and the pay and how like they should be bonus structured, that's honestly a fabulous idea. Like, why don't we pay them the average pay for Ohio? Give them the average salary. As the average salary increases, then their pay can increase with that average. However, pay them the average. If they do good, if there is no deficit, give them a 10% bonus. If there's if efficiency in certain departments are above what they were in the previous year or something, give them another bonus. I mean, I work at like Speedway, for example, and their store managers and restaurant managers and stuff like that. They're all, I mean, you want the big bucks? You better start bringing in money to the store. That's how you make your money. You want $80,000 a year on a salary, or you want to make $100,000 with a bonus and everything? You got to hit, like 10 out of 11 or 12 goals in the whole list, and that's where you make your money at, is by hitting those metrics. You don't just, it's not like you just, here's a whole lump sum of money, just keep doing whatever you're doing. So I think that would resolve a lot of the commissioner rule. Just kind of, I guess, you just see older people in it. Obviously that would make them actually start doing a little more work into the position. I mean, and honestly, what does a commissioner do different from like a city council member, for example, that results that they need 80,000 a year? I mean, they do, it's pretty much the same thing. You're in meetings a couple times a month, few times a month. I mean, I know they have committees and everything else as well, but it's not, I would not call it a full-time position. I know if you're going to events and stuff, that's your choice. Nobody's telling you to get out of your house. Nobody's telling you to do anything. If you want to work with the public, you make that decision. You're making that decision. You don't work with the public just to sit on a lump sum of money. This isn't the 1500s. It's not, we don't have kings anymore, literally.
You would think that we don't, but we kind of do. This political elite class kind of acts like they're kings and queens for sure. But no, you're exactly right. And if you look into how that developed and what the expectations were for like county commissioner, historically. Like it was viewed as kind of a part-time gig. Like people would work and then they would be county commissioner. Well, then back in like the 1980s, they started, you had candidates who were retired. Okay. So, but they weren't like ancient. So they weren't in their late 70s and 80s and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to offend the viewers out there who are in their late 70s or 80s. I love you, and I'm not talking about you. You are the epitome of virility, I am sure. But they would say, well, so and so works as an attorney or runs a business and they're commissioner. I will be a full-time commissioner because I'm retired and you can call me at any time. You can come talk to me and I will work on your behalf. So they started in like the late 70s and the 80s, kind of campaigning on this notion of I'm going to be a full-time commissioner.
But that sounds like it's a personal choice. If you are, I'm not telling you as I pay taxes, I'm not telling you to go out and answer every person's phone call. That's a you choice.
Right. But I guess my point with that is, are the commissioners today, even though they are being compensated handsomely, as though they are working full time, putting 40, 50 hours of work in per week, are they really? Or are they just attending the 2 meetings per week or whatever it is, and then just kind of going, being social butterflies and having cocktails and obviously not looking at budget reports? Not doing that. They don't do that. That's not their forte. No. Not economic development either. Just socializing. That's what they're making 80K a year, is socializing. So I'd love to see a time study. I'd love to see a time study to say that's another thing the private sector does. If you're smart and you run a business, Damien, you know it, Jay, you know it. They would say, we want to know how much time you spend doing your job. Are you wasting time? Is there something else that we could better utilize your services and your time during this 8-hour shift that we have you? And a good, well-managed business will do that. I've done it for my in the course of my career and stuff, because you're trying to increase efficiency so you can produce more and you can make more money. Government doesn't do that. So has anybody looked and say, how much time are these commissioners actually spending on the job? And they're making $80,000 a year.
Do they have a time clock? Like, do they clock in and out? Is there an actual timekeeping?
Hell no.
Not from what I understand, no.
No.
I bet that would change the whole dynamic if they had to actually go to the county building and be like, all right, I'm here to, go to the office, punch in or whatever the case is. But I just feel like the public should be able to know how they spend their time. That's our tax money. I mean, I'm not saying we got to know when they're going to the bathroom and everything else, but like, if you're working on the job, I think we should know how many hours you're putting into the job. If it's not a full-time job, why are we paying $70,000, $80,000 a year? In city council, if they're working 40 hours a week, for example, maybe that I'm not saying they need 40,000 a year or some crazy number, but like there should be compensation should be on the time you're spent and not by socializing, but by like actual time you're spending. So like if council's spending 20 hours a week in meetings, then, if you do minimum wage times 20 hours, that's 200 a week or it's a little more than that. But, you take 30 hours, multiply minimum wage by 30 hours, you get, about a good number. So like the compensation should respectably be for the work that's being done. Like you said, it's all about productivity. And if you're getting paid $70,000 just to call people all day and tell them what you're doing and you got a pedicure done or this and that, I mean, that's crazy money just to talk about your life. or to talk about, the roads looking like trash, or I got a new curb put in on the side of my road and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the thing is, most people goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the lack of in-depth investigative reporting because it just doesn't exist.
Right.
Same thing with the analysis. So not asking the questions because most people have no clue. They don't know who their commissioners are. They don't know who their city councilmen are. They don't know how much they make. They don't know what it goes into the job. They've never watched or attended a meeting. They just know maybe vaguely that there is some entity that is governing their local government. But when you have people that are looking into this, that are well informed, that are asking questions, analyzing, pointing things out, and saying, hey, wait a minute, is this the proper compensation for this? How much time are they actually spending doing their jobs?
And an important
Those questions, and bringing it out there to the masses, then other people finally start saying, hey, wait a minute. So the average household, not average person, not
Right.
average worker in Marion County, the average household is making $63,000 a year.
An important point to add to that before you go on, sorry, Cody, is that the people that are with us here in this little clan are people in the fields. So finance, IT, you know what I mean? They have experience in these fields, law enforcement, detectives. We have military personnel. We have people in the healthcare field. We have just there, any field you can think of. I can reach out right now in the network and talk to somebody that's probably been doing, some of these people have been doing this stuff longer than I've been alive. So even in the inner team, Cody's in finance. I've been an IT systems administrator for over 20 years. This is well documented. You know what I mean? Like, we can prove this stuff. So the big outcry right now is coming from people who are not qualified and do not take the time to go through the receipts and are puppeting rhetoric that's been repeated over decades that makes no sense when you put it to the actual receipts being delivered to you from people who are qualified in their respective, highly qualified in their respective fields.
Right, and some of the things we provide evidence and we provide commentary or analysis. The conclusions may not be crystal clear. So they're not going to necessarily jump out every time and say, this is the conclusion of this allegation or this theory or this issue. That's why it's incumbent upon you to review the evidence that's submitted. And we may give our opinions, we may provide our analysis and our commentary, but sometimes just that last part, that's up to you to make.
Yeah, we've been seeing citizens pop in the comments recently, talking about the financial stuff, with financial backgrounds and IT backgrounds. And they're figuring it out. We started chopping that stuff down into smaller pieces. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and asking questions is always a good starter, is getting that conversation going. Now, what ends up happening with it, again, who knows, but you want to be paying attention to government in particular, and you want to ask questions, and you want to demand transparency and accountability. Now, and I personally would throw in their fiscal responsibility.
I'm sorry, you're going to get me ranting again, because I asked a question the other day, and oh my gosh, it was the end of the world. And transparency, you can't go very far for that one, apparently. Otherwise, you just risk offending somebody for asking a question.
What did you do? What did I miss?
So Josh Daniels had added me on Facebook a couple weeks ago. Don't know the man, have never talked to the man in my life. I could care less what he does. However, I know that he has served in city council. I know he was serving as a commissioner. I know he has multiple businesses in Marion, and that he had a lot of his businesses have done very very well in the last probably decade or two decades, like in the last, pretty much since I've been knowledgeable and understanding with stuff, from just like, Josh Daniels Apartments, and then now you got Josh Daniel Waste, Josh Daniel Apartments. I see him on a bench, for crying out loud. So I asked him, I was like, I actually have the actual question I asked him, but I just asked him, what was it? Let me give this word for word, so I'm not well, shoot, where'd it go?
We're losing him. We're losing him, Damien.
Actually, somewhere. No, I got it, and my Facebook's acting up, so I can't just pull up my message.
Just summarize it.
So, Mr. Daniels had said something, and I was just like, I think this is where it gets blown a little out of proportion. And so I kind of went on a thing, and I was like, your businesses seem to do really well in the last few years from, a personal perspective. I was like, and then I was just asking, like, how many contracts do you have with the city or the county and stuff? I don't know. I'm not trying to say anything. I was genuinely asking a question, because if a business does really well, and you can go from one businesses to 4, 5, 6 businesses in the matter of 2 decades, I was just curious as to, like, how much of that is tied to county or city revenue streams. He said he had one contract, and if that's his answer, that's his answer. I mean, that's really that simple. He gave the answer. Nobody's feelings should have been hurt over it. I'm not really sure why it broke down into what it was. But what I will tell you is that from that message, he had sent me a message, and he said, I read your public message again. What government contract did I ever use my position to gain favor? Now, I never said anything about that. I just asked him what his contracts tied to the county and city were. That was it. Right. He said, what government contract did I ever use my position to gain favor? You can't name one, just what you felt at the time you said it. No proof. This is why an uninformed public should not be counted on to make good decisions. P.S. When you open a statement with respect, it probably means you're about to say something disrespectful, and you should hold the thought. So focus on advancing yourself instead of enviously worrying about me. Word. Like he's my age. I don't know. Man's old. He's like twice my age. Come on now. So I had said, I think you entirely missed my point. I didn't say you used your position to gain any favor on any specific contract, and I'm not making an accusation. What I said is that it's fair to ask questions about the growth.
Was that a public comment?
No, this is all in my private messages.
I mean the original one.
Oh, yeah, the original one, it was on his post, but he ended up blocking me from Facebook. So I'm assuming that it probably got popped off of his post there.
I might have pulled it. Like, I crawl all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So I was like, what I said is that it's fair to ask questions about growth, timing, and the overlap when someone has held public office for such a long while, and also being involved in private local business. I said, and that's not envy, that's accountability. The same accountability you ask voters to trust. I mean, and to his point about the uninformed public, I'll tell you word for word what I said. I think people are far more informed than you're giving them credit for. They're looking at long-term results, leadership decisions, and how things have played out over time. That's part of making a good decision. You learn from your mistakes, you make better decisions, and you grow going forward. It's really that simple. And, as for with respect, I meant exactly that. He held positions of influence at both the city and county levels for years, and with that, it comes up with a higher level of scrutiny. I mean, just like Wesley Davis said, I mean, once you take on a public office, your name is, you can't really, I mean, there is still defamation and stuff, but you're opening yourself to public comment. You're opening yourself to public debate. I mean, he added me on Facebook and made a post, a public post. You're not saying you wouldn't expect somebody to comment on it? If you made it publicly, why'd you even add me? I mean, you made that decision. But, and then I was like, at the end of the day, I was focused on asking questions and understanding the full picture. That's really all it come down to. And that wasn't something I was going to apologize for. And I did tell him, I mean, I wanted to make a note. You added me. I didn't add you. And you made the post. I was just giving you feedback. That's really all it come down to. He was the one that got upset. And I was like, in conclusion, if that kind of question upsets you and shuts you down, I think that speaks for itself.
I mean, that's kind of interesting. That's a very interesting exchange. That's definitely weird.
It was
I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah, like he just got very upset over that question. Like all he had to say was, all I ever had was one like his first thing was, I only ever had one contract, or he said that somewhere in my messages, and that's all you had to say. Like I wasn't trying to attack you. Like, okay, you had one contract. You know, spin the freaking flag. Pardon my French. You know,
watch the F word on here. We don't do the F word.
My apologies.
Okay,
but no, like it was a question.
There's I think it's will suffice it to say that if it's connected to government, people want to know, people have a right to know. So you want transparency, you want accountability. Now that's not only for certain arrangements if you are a member of government, past or present, but just overall general government. Like you should demand that. So I think that's what I would say about that. Now we're getting a little bit long here. Let's get out of the local issues. Maybe we'll skip over the state since Jay has this up. We've got a pretty, I don't know if you would say important. I mean, to me, I think that it is.
If it's the Constitution, it's important.
Coming up in the Supreme Court. So if you recall a while back, President Trump issued an executive order terminating birthright citizenship. The notion of birthright citizenship. And that probably will be struck down just because he did it by executive order. I personally think that he is correct. And I think that most originalists or strict constructionists, constitutional scholars, it's plain as day that it was never the intention of the drafters of the 14th Amendment in 1866 to create this expectation or this legal precedent that you are a citizen of these United States simply because you were born here. So they didn't really have illegal aliens back then. We didn't have people flooding over our borders from the third world and then coming in here and dropping a baby. But we do now. We have had millions upon millions over the past 20 years in particular, 40 years if you want to expand it out to a lesser extent. But this is the text of the 14th Amendment. A little bit of historical background. What did we have going on in this country in 1865 and prior to 1861? So you had the Civil War that was fought. Before that, you had sub-Saharan African slaves that were brought in into the South, and they were not considered citizens of the states that they lived in. So they had to solve that problem once the Civil War was over and the Union was victorious and the slaves were freed. So they had to say, well, we need to do something here to actually recognize these people because they were not citizens of their respective states prior to the Civil War. So we've got to do something to grant them citizenship. And that's where the 14th Amendment came. So they said, even though, so you're naturalized, you're subject to the jurisdiction thereof, the laws of the United States. So you're a citizen where you reside. It was never, ever, 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 ever the intention to say that, well, if somebody sneaks in the country and poops out a baby, then the baby is an American citizen. That was never the intention of anybody that drafted this constitutional amendment or signed off on it.
So
This was only something that was created by the courts, the liberal judges in certain parts of this country over the past 30 years. And then once these liberal judges and these liberal courts said, no, that's what this means. This means subject to jurisdiction thereof. So if you're illegally in this country, you're subject to our jurisdiction. So then if you have a child here, that child is born in the United States, therefore it's a citizen. No, like, again, there's no legal precedent for that whatsoever. It was created, it was fugazi, as they would say in The Wolf of Wall Street. You know, it's just fake. It's fugazi. That's an Italian term, I do believe. And that's what Trump's finally trying to do away with. But doing it through executive order is probably not going to pass constitutional muster. But it's definitely something that, if we care about the integrity of what it means to be a citizen of the United States, that we need to demand is addressed. You should not be granted citizenship just because you were born here to illegal parents. Citizenship has to mean something, or it means nothing. Damien.
I was gonna say, so when you start getting into, I guess, like you were saying, the Supreme Court will likely shoot it down, and I would probably say, and I'm no lawyer. I can only tell you I'm an undergraduate student in pre-law, but I would agree with you from what I've learned. When you get into it and you're talking about judges, though, you get into an ideology, I guess, almost, of a living constitution and a standalone, or like a what it's written for constitution. And judges have like a different opinion as to, like, a living constitution is you adjust the definition based on current times. So, like how you said, back in the 1700s, we didn't have aliens or, immigrants flooding over the borders. So, like, in that living constitution ideology or definition, however I don't know what the technical political terminology for it would be, but
it's constitutional interpretation.
Yeah. So when you're talking about that interpretation of the Constitution, it kind of depends on what judge you get, for one, because if they believe, it's written like it is, they're going to be like, oh, well, that doesn't include, modern time. But if you get like a more, I don't even know which one where you would find that, but you get a judge that is more like living constitutional belief, then you get like, yes, like, we need to, bring that definition for modern times because, we didn't have aliens then, but we do now.
But that's precisely the flaw in liberal jurisprudence and liberal constitutional interpretation, is that it allows for judicial activism. it allows for judge-made law, judicial legislation, because you can say, well, this is how I interpret this. This is what would be more appropriate in the 21st century, is to interpret it this way. When in reality, we should be interpreting legislation or constitutional amendments based on what the intention was of the drafters when they drafted it, what the meanings were, because we're not dealing with Stone Age Neanderthals here. Like, we're dealing with people who were intellectually superior to us today. And they were all very well written, very well read. So it's very clear what their intentions were. And you can read Bingham of Ohio is the actual fellow that drafted the 14th Amendment in 1866. He's very clear. He actually spoke specifically on that, that it did not confer citizenship to somebody simply because they were born here, but to parents who were not citizens. So, but again, if you're some leftist out there, some leftist judge or leftist attorney, you make that argument and you can have it mean whatever you want to mean. And again, you either are a nation with borders or you're nothing. Citizenship matters or it doesn't.
I mean,
So
a nation isn't even a nation without a border. I mean, you can't have Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. unless you have a border. So you do away with that. I mean, you can
right.
arguably get into like that whole one world order BS. You start going down that route.
Right. And get my tinfoil hat on, but there's people that are trying to destroy this country from within using things like this, using wide open borders, flooding us with people from the third world, putting strains on all our infrastructure and resources through the welfare state. And that's the reality. And that's why when you serve in the U.S. Armed Forces, you swear an oath to protect the Constitution, the people of the United States, and the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Domestic means homegrown, right here. So we anticipated that there are going to be dangerous forces that arise from our own midst. But yet we forget that part, and government doesn't want us to focus on that, to say we have a duty against those threats that are domestic. They're not talking about some guy out in Montana in a militia or something like that. No, they're talking about subversive actors, politicians, people that come in and try to tear us up from inside. And we've got a lot of that going on, and we've had a lot of that going on, particularly over the last 60 years in this country from a historical standpoint. But all right, let's move on to the next national topic, because we're burning through the hourglass. There's always so many grains of sand left in that thing. We're gonna have to shake it up.
I know we need more time.
A little bit more time. All right, another national topic is this quagmire that is brewing in Iran. I don't want to sit here and gloat, folks, because when we had that other Unchained discussion when the Iran war broke out, I was the only member of the Watchmen's report that was very skeptical of it and saying, well, what comes next? Are we prepared for this? We're doing the bidding of Israel, and this is not good and stuff. And now here we are, 30 days in. And who was proven right? Me, Bill Dance, get down tonight on the Watchmen's report, because Cody Higley was right. Once again, it's like clockwork. I don't know what to tell you, but it's a mess. It's a mess. It's destroying. Look at gas prices. Shortages are now anticipated. in the supply chain. We've got countries announcing lockdowns and changes to their work structures. We're going to be in another freaking COVID type situation. And these bastards are probably going to use it. They're probably going to manipulate it, take advantage of it, just like Rahm Emanuel, that communist SOB under Obama. He said, you never let a good crisis go to waste. So you're probably going to have that. The elite are probably going to, milk that for what they can to crack down on us, take more stuff away from us, liberty, money, whatever it is. And we've already got announcements. They're running out of things, and they're going to be rationing gas and cutting hours of workers and stay-at-home orders. And that's happening in Asia. That's happening Australia. Well, we're seeing that. Are we going to see it here in this country? Yeah, you could say like Trump's like, well, we don't even get our oil from there. Well, that's true, but the rest of the world that actually makes stuff, that actually makes the things that we buy with our monopoly money, they do get their oil from there. So what's that going to do to consumer price increases for all these goods, producer price increases? So the CPI and the PPI. So those are two economic indicators, metrics that economists use, and I reference frequently. They're going up, 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 and what's the end? So now we're hearing the potential invasion. So at some scale, they're moving different military resources into the Middle East and saying that they may go take Karg Island. Well, there's no oil currently there. The Iranians have already shut off the tap there on the banks of Hormuz. So the island, okay, you take that, okay. You think that's going to give you the control that you need of the Straits of Hormuz to be able to move American and Israeli ships through it? I don't see that happening. And to do some type of amphibious assault or special ops, airborne, and the thing is, it changes every day. So you hear Trump, oh, we're done with this. No, I'm gonna destroy him. Well, we'll be here for another 2 weeks. No, we're gonna end it tomorrow. There's no consistency. It's a cluster, and it's not America first. It's not America first. It's not conservative. It's not focusing here. Now, I honestly think this was the worst thing that he could have done, the absolute worst thing, because of how this is all playing out. Damien, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts, honestly, I'm more of an isolationist personally. So I get it. I get national defense, and I get contracts with other countries to preserve our presence and whatnot.
This is puppeteering. This is Israel and Jewish power.
You can't see my hands right now, but like I'm moving them like this as I'm talking. But I'm more isolationist. What does the Middle East have to do with us? Like realistically, we can supply our own oil if that's what we chose to do. We can do whatever we want with our own land. The whole thought of let's use the other people's resources first. I understand it, but at the same time, like, how does that benefit us? Like, if they run out, I understand in 100 years, but that doesn't help our $40 trillion deficit or anything else now. I mean, we ain't even going to survive 100 years to see it run out. So, I mean, got to make better choices. And, like Iran has that strait when you're getting into like the details of like where the placement is of things. And if they wanted to just shoot missiles at that strait, that, an insurance company, companies work on insurance, like based on insurance. They insure their boats, they insure their vessels, their goods. Okay, if there is a entity that is bombing boats actively going through that, do you think your insurance company is going to be like, let us just cover that $5 million boat for you? No, they're going to be, that's too much of a loss. You're only giving us $1,000 a month. We ain't ever going to see that money back. We can't do that. So then what happens? Companies don't want to move that oil. So your supply is still up here, or your demand, my bad, your demand is still up here. Your supply drops because those companies don't want to move the oil. So unless you can actively defend, and how many military servicemen would it take, or how many drones, or how much resources is it going to take to protect all of those cargo vessels? I mean, I'm more, like I said, isolationist. You know, if they want to come to us, we got 400 million Americans, we got 800 million guns. Nobody's, unless we get nuked, they're not going anywhere. They might make a boat landing before it gets blown up to ash. It's really that simple. It would take too many resources. I mean, you've seen what happened with Pearl Harbor. Japan took one bomb, and then next thing you know, they lost 2 big cities. It's the reality is like, I don't think we have anything to worry about. I think we spend tons of money in defense and military spending. So I don't really see the need to expand further presence in an area of the world that doesn't even, what's it do to us? Like I said, we can produce the oil here. We just got to make appropriate changes and allow those permits and stuff, those drilling. I don't know what it is. It's like permits or something.
You're acting like Americans run America.
Well,
that's your critical flaw.
Like,
Americans
where
do
is
not
America
run
first? Like, where are we first? If we were all dropped in Iran right now, what does that do for us as a country? Like, what? And I'm entirely open to listening what good it has for us in terms of if it's a defense, if it's resource, whatever it is.
None. It's not about us. That's the thing. We don't run this country. When you have a foreign country that dictates policy, and I'm talking about Israel.
I don't like Israel.
You are not sovereign. You are subservient to your master state, which is that's what is going on here. And arguably that is what went on in Iraq. That is why we bombed Syria under Obama, and then later on Biden, and now they're creating this sphere of influence in this Israeli empire on behalf of Israel. I'm sorry if you can't say that, if you can't question things, but people better start. And people are talking about it, so it's not just me. But I'm like you, Damien. I'm a proponent of America first. I'm pretty much a proponent of America only.
I wouldn't.
These forever wars. That's not what we signed on when we supported Trump. Trump was very, very adamant that he was against military interventionism and regime change and stuff. And then what did he say yesterday or the day before? He's like, "Oh yeah, it's a great opportunity for regime change in Iran." Like what? What? And Iran's like what, 3 or 4 times the size of Iraq, and it's mountainous terrain, and it's not a cakewalk. When you talk about birthplaces of civilization and foundational civilizations of humanity, the Persians, the Iranians, Iran is Persia. I have a lot of respect. I mean, it was a very highly advanced culture. And to think that you're just going to walk in with 100,000 troops or whatever you might put in there and you're gonna quickly conquer Persia? No, 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 no. I don't think that that's going to happen. Not without destroying yourself in the process. So,
No, I think Afghanistan was a good example of that. I mean, we thought we could just, or the administration at the time just thought that they could just alley-oop themselves right up in there. And I think Afghanistan alley-ooped you right back out just as fast as you went back. So,
a bunch of 12th century goat herders
I mean,
defeated the allegedly strongest military the world has ever known. Like, Jay,
when I was growing up, I was around a lot of military people, including James Cook from the Joanne School of Dance Network, Joanne's son, who was 82nd Airborne. My brother Jeff Lauk, who was in the military. My father, who was a combat veteran. Those mountainous terrains over in the Middle East, from what I understand, are no bullshit. Like, they're hard to fight in. These people are, contrary to what the mainstream propaganda machine wants to tell us, these people will fuck you up. Like, they're not cowards in any sense. It's a warrior culture pretty much because they've been in wars forever. So when we go over there, thinking we're just going to mop the ground with them, a lot of times it doesn't go like that. And Russia fought those guys for a long time in the 80s, and they got their asses kicked too. So, pick your battles. But this Iran thing is starting to look real suspicious to me. I mean, I do think that regime was, by definition, evil, but they're largely neutralized now. So this carpet bombing of the country that is ongoing is at the behest of Israel's wishes, I think. And it's just not okay.
And I was going to say, when you talk about Israel, let's be real here. If you look up like the SS Liberty, they have done some questionable actions against us. And I'm not saying they're terrible people, but at the same time, I wouldn't trust them as far as I can throw them.
Right.
And they're pretty far away. I can't even reach them. So I'm not throwing them very far. It's just, you can't just ignore the fact that there has been questionable actions done. And I get it. Okay. That's the land of the Jews. That's the land of whatever you want to say, whether it's biblical, or however you want to look at it, from Palestinian standpoint, Jewish standpoint, whatever it is. Like, they've done questionable actions to us as a country, them as a country. So you can't just be like, oh, hey, buddy, you bombed our boat. Let's just come on over. Let's just help you out. Like, where's the common sense in that? If I come and rob your house, you're not going to invite me over after you buy new stuff.
Right.
So you got to, I'm not saying either like just leave them out to dry, but you got to have very high caution when you're dealing with people that have done questionable actions. And, they still, or they denied it before it ever actually came out. So that means that they'll already do shady stuff as it is. So what makes you think that
genocide in Gaza? They do plenty of shady things. You want to talk about evil? Anytime, that's another thing, folks, that should get your spidey sense tingling, is when they use these emotional arguments and highly charged language. Just like we talked about what local government or state government will do when they want to pass a levy or increase your taxes. We already had that conversation, but on the international scale, geopolitics, they do the same thing. They'll try to say, well, this person is Hitler. It's the next Hitler. If we don't stop them, they're going to bomb the world. It's going to be nuclear holocaust if we allow this regime to continue. Be very skeptical of anything that is said in that context, because chances are they're manipulating you. They're pulling those strings to get you to believe their propaganda and to pursue a particular objective or take a particular action or to take control of you, take more money from you, take away your freedom, your liberty. That's what has been done time and time again by our own government. And I could go through historical going all the way back to the Civil War. We talk about the Civil War. You can talk a lot about the situation in this country from a civil rights or rights, liberties, that were taken away. But I won't go into that conversation. But that's what's going on here, and Israel's engaged in some very, very evil things. When you have Gaza, which was basically an open air prison, and you have highest concentration per capita per square mile within that small area, highest population in the world, most impoverished area in the world, under the administration of the Israeli government, and it's full of a bunch of Muslims. And then when they decide that they're going to liquidate Gaza, they were dumping aid packages. So from like the Red Crescent, which is the equivalent of the Red Cross within the Islamic world, and different international aid societies dropping packages in, and then they're getting attacked. So they're starving people that need medical assistance and stuff, going out trying to retrieve these packages, and the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, is killing them.
Literally, yeah.
It's war crimes, but nothing will be done because that's who is pulling the strings internationally. So
it's the same argument too. It's always like, it's like a religious context. It's always something to defend the actions that they do. Well, at what point do you draw a line? Like where do you finally say, okay, this is enough? Like we're quick to do it with Russia, we're quick to do it with China, but at the same time, we're just gonna allow Israel and some of these other countries just to do whatever they want. Like
it's all within this religious prophetic argument that's made, and I'm so sick of that. Like I'm not trying to be critical, but the Bible's pretty clear that no man will know the hour or the day. So when Christ will return, the end of days type situation, it's pretty clear. And then it also says that if somebody says that they do know, they are a prophet, but they're a false prophet. Right. But yet you have all these leaders today within Christianity, within Judaism, that, and to a lesser extent, certain parts of the Muslim world, they're trying to like facilitate it. Like that's the other thing that gets me is if you're talking that God says this XYZ will happen, wouldn't you think that it would be like spontaneous? And he already says that he doesn't, that you won't know the hour of the day and all this kind of stuff. It's not like I'm going to make this happen. You don't have a bunch of world leaders sitting around saying, we are going to make this situation happen. We are going to cause like the Battle of Armageddon in the end of days. Like you wouldn't think that would be how it like goes down when the Bible says that no man will know the hour of the day. Like, so that's where it really frustrates me when those arguments are used, or anything associated with that. Like, and now you have the whole goal, and look into it as far as what Judaism teaches as far as the Messiah, the coming of the Messiah. Jesus was not a Messiah.
Right.
He was basically a heretic. And the Talmud says that he's burning in boiling hot feces for eternity, basically, because in hell, because he was a false prophet, a heretic. They also believe that the Messiah will come, but temple will have to be rebuilt. And then when the temple's rebuilt, There has to be a sacrifice of a perfect red heifer. And this is all stuff that they're talking about right now. They're talking about like they imported this red heifer from Texas and it's like no blemishes because rabbinical law says that in order for this red heifer to be sacrificed on the Temple Mount, that'll be the sign of the coming of the Messiah and all this stuff and the rebuilding of the temple. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be red, and it's So they allegedly have this. They're clearing out Gaza. They're getting us to go and take out Persia, take out Iran. I don't know. I think they are. I think they're like trying to force this like end of days coming of their Messiah, rebuilding of the temple, and then under that, the belief is that once the temple and Messiah returns, they will control the world. They'll subjugate the goyim, so that's us. That's the non-Jewish types, and that'll be all she wrote. So that doesn't like bode very well for like an America First or for us goyim here. Like, wait a minute, like I'm going to be subjugated. Like I don't really like that more than I already am.
For the record, too, I have an uncle that is actually a director of religious studies at down in Florida. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah, he is actually a what is it? Religious studies director. Oh shoot.
we should have him on sometime if he wants to come on. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, the director for Christian Studies certificate in the Religious Studies Department, and that's at Florida International University.
Well, he
did a lot of missions in like South American stuff as well, or missionary travels and stuff. So,
yeah, that's like I said, that's fine. That's fine, but I don't want some people with powerful elite interests to try to, I don't know, in the world. That doesn't seem cool. I don't know, but all right. As far as the last topic, let's throw a state issue. So we're coming up on the May 5th primary, so almost a little bit more than a month, and we've got early voting that'll start on Monday, the 6th of April. So locally, we have the race in the 86th district that is getting pretty spicy.
Yeah,
pretty hot and heavy between old Ben or young Ben Weber and Wesleyan Davis and Stephen Wolf. So, Damian, what are your thoughts? I mean, you almost jumped into that race. So who do you think? Now, the establishment elite clearly want Ben Weber. The special interests, he's been maxed out in his contributions from a lot of these unions that are closely tied with data centers that they're wanting to put all over the fruited plain in the Buckeye State. He's getting big money from these corrupt, dark money interests, these special interests, these PACs. And the establishment's pretty darn clear that that's the horse that they want. And he's just fresh out of school. He's fresh out of law school. Really, as far as I'm aware, hasn't practiced law. He's been campaigning full time, trying to fool enough voters in the 86 to cast their lot with him. What are your thoughts on the race? Do you think that he will fool enough people to vote for him, or do you think people will see through that and vote for Wesleyan or Stephen Wolf?
So I've seen, as of current, I see a lot of support for Wesleyan Davis. I also see, I don't see nearly as much support for Stephen Wolf, but both of them, I really like both of them as from what I've talk to them a little bit about. Obviously, Ben didn't show up to the forum when there was a forum, and so all you got was what was one of the pastor of the, or one of the pastors had, gave the answers for Ben, but I think it's very, I don't want to say tacky, but it's just not very well received when somebody else is reading your answers. I think the biggest statement you can make is by personally, going, and at the same time, like, I think we should question the intentions of the candidates as to why is it more important that you go with, I guess how I see it is are people waving money and he'd rather go see the money, or is it the people that are more important? I find that very questionable, because like, you need your voters, you need your support. So why would you not engage with that public, if you're worried about somebody saying, well, you just graduated law school, what'd you expect? You're getting into a race. Like, when I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna try it. I was ready. Realistically, I was prepared for anything from, my dad getting arrested to my mom being an ex-drug addict. Like, I was ready to kind of wave my laundry in the air. I mean, it is what it is. That's what that's what you're doing when you run for that position. I mean, you might as well just air your life out.
Right.
But Wesley Davis and Stephen Wolf, one of the questions I asked them was about like law degree or law licensure, not really deregulation, but expansion on those licensing, like the minimum requirements. So, like I was saying, some states offer it's called a limited legal practitioner license or a limited law license. Can you imagine how much money just across the U.S. or, okay, we'll take it Ohio, for example. How much money could we save the average family if you could hire a paralegal to do the same work that an attorney does, but for a fifth of the price? I mean, you go to an attorney, you're spending $1,500 at minimum, up to $5,000 or $10,000 for, depending on what the case is. It could be a divorce case, a custody case, a traffic ticket. I mean, anything. It could cost you a wide range of money. And so I'm not saying, so like, I'm an undergraduate student in law, so this would obviously be a little bias from my perspective because that's what I'm going into. And I don't mind acknowledging that my opinion might be biased, and I'm willing to stand in front of that. However, I think I have to go to school. I have to learn various law definitions, various law terminology. So what makes the difference and a paralegal can actually perform every attorney task that an attorney performs. The only difference is the attorney has to sign off on it.
Right.
The attorney could look at his paralegal and say, hey, I need you to write this document I need for court tomorrow morning. And literally the attorney takes it in and that's what he uses. The only difference is the attorney gets the credit. I mean, that's really what it is. A paralegal is just a behind the scenes script writer or, behind the scenes worker. And then the attorney gets all the credit for everything. But imagine, if you didn't have to pay $1,500 for a simple, you and your significant other or wife or whatever, you guys just agree that, you guys don't see eye to eye and you guys want to break up or, go your separate ways and do things amicably, respectfully. You each get an attorney, you're looking at what, $1,000 or $2,000 between both of you, $3,000. Could you imagine if you could just talk to a paralegal and be like, hey, I just need a basic a basic separation agreement with split custody or whatever you guys agree on. $200-$300 and you're out the door with your agreement. You go file it in court and you're done.
Right.
So I mean, they were very Stephen Wolf and Wesleyan Davis were very open and willing to expand those licensures or deregulate some of that licensure restrictions. And I think that would have, we talk about economic growth and needing to kind of fuel that fire. If you're saving thousands of dollars, that allows you to spend thousands of dollars on other stuff. So you can save $1,000. That's $1,000 you could put in food, for crying out loud, or a lot of different aspects you can take into account on that. But in my studies, every attorney and all of my professors are practicing or previously practicing attorneys of law. So all of my attorneys will tell you, or all of my professors will tell you, the moneymaker is family law. You don't make money in criminal law. You don't make money filing, patents or stuff like that. There is money in those areas in big cities where you have millions of people, but like Marion, Ohio, or Columbus, you make a lot of money in family law. Everybody is always having a family problem at some point in their life. So, I mean,
all right. Jay's going to pull this up.
No, you're good.
Why you're not going to get anywhere with Ben Weber on your dream of that? What do you notice on there? Half, Stettinius, and Hollister Better Government Fund. That's one of the largest law firms. I think it might be number 1 or number 2 in the state of Ohio. Was a contributor. They also contribute to most of your big time politicians in the state of Ohio. So bunch of law firm money, attorney money. So your little dream of that is not going to happen under Ben Weber or state of Ohio that is controlled.
That's my point, though. I think
Ben
Weber,
you got that one at the bottom there. Ohio Law PAC.
I'd rather keep my vote if I had to. Even if I could vote for him, if he was the last person on the ballot, I think I'd rather just keep my vote. It's that simple. Like, go cash out a refund, request some. I mean, I don't know what to do in that situation, but that vote I don't think is the one that's going to resolve anything, honestly.
No, it's not. And the thing to look at here, folks, is highly, highly, highly suspicious. Is this one at the top, Affiliated Construction Trades Ohio Foundation. That's ACT Ohio. Right. Okay, so that's a union, and they're really pushing the data centers across the state that are draining all of our electricity or stressing our grid, causing your electric bills to skyrocket as they have been, and then also sucking up all our water and then polluting it and then dumping it back out into our rivers, creeks, and streams. So $16,650.67 was given to Ben Weber during that pre-primary phase. That is the maximum contribution that a PAC can give to a candidate. And if you look at ACT Ohio's contributions, they've only maxed out a couple. Vivek Ramaswamy, they maxed him out. And they maxed out Ben Weber and maybe Matt Huffman and maybe Bill Reinecke, if I recall.
And I think
Huffman is Speaker of the House, and Bill Reinecke is pro tem of the Senate.
Yeah, we should definitely keep those affiliated people in the back of your mind, because obviously I don't want to say there's nothing that says they're connected, but if you got a lot of big companies throwing money at the same people, and obviously it's and very select people too, obviously that should tell you that there is a group, they're connected somehow. There's an interest.
A cabal. Kabal. It's a elite group, a corrupt group that is exerting influence, you know, over things. And that's what's going on here. And it'd be one thing if you wanted to say, okay, we're going to max out. You could argue Ramaswamy because he's running for governor. Okay, that makes somewhat more sense to say this guy is a top statewide candidate. He's running for governor. Okay, that makes some sense. It makes some sense for Bill Reineke because he's been serving in the Ohio Senate for a few years here. He's president pro tem of the Senate, so he's got some power and influence. So maxing him out, buying him off makes sense. Matt Huffman, Speaker of the House, again, he's been in office. He has power. He has influence. It makes sense. Why in the F are they maxing out Ben Weber, who literally graduated law school last year?
I think there's more to. I think, okay, if you want to get into theories or possibilities, I think there's more to it down the road. Someone who has graduated law school, that opens up a lot of elected positions that he can run for, even if it goes into Supreme Court. Long term down the road, he could run for Supreme Court, and at the end of the day, that affects our constitutional laws and how those are interpreted. So, I think there's more down. I think there's a plan.
You think they think he's like a prodigy? He's like,
I think they're setting him up.
We talked about the coming of the Messiah. Do they think that
pretty much
he is
how
like
they're
the
treating him.
Messiah
They're
for the
like,
state
hey,
of
this is
Ohio?
going to be.
Is that how good he is? Did he just light it up and everything he touches, he's like Midas's touch turns to gold? So they're like, man, we got to get a piece of that. We got to buy that. Spread those Benjamins out there to Ben. You know, no, they're buying him because they have their eyes on Central Ohio in particular. You look at the proliferation of these data centers, they're focused on Central Ohio and also around the lakeshore, and around the Ohio River. But Central Ohio with Columbus, that's the state capital, and you want to talk about government power and influence, they're all Columbus was known as a cow town until like 50 years ago. Population has exploded, and it's all connected to the growth of government.
Right.
So most of those jobs, if you went into a lot of neighborhoods in Columbus and you threw a rock in a 360-degree direction, you'd hit somebody that worked for the government. And, you know, that's the Union County, Marion County, that's the 86th district. They got their eyes on it for that. And development, you know, it's like this highway connector project. Same corrupt bullshit going on there. And that was Reineke that was pushing that because he's up in Northwest Ohio. He lives outside of Tiffin, and he owns all these car dealerships and stuff, and getting all this money from these transportation packs and the same type, you know, data center pack money and all that kind of thing. So he wants that highway connector. I think my theory is not only because of their influence and how they want to cut 15 minutes off their commute times going down through southern Delaware County, but I think they want it for the infrastructure needed to put in a whole bunch of data centers in Morrow County and in Marion County, and to tap into the water. So you've got Allen Creek, you've got Shaw Creek in Morrow County, you've got the Olentangy River, and then you've got Delaware Reservoir. That's a lot of water. And they need the infrastructure that would enable them to be close so they could do those building projects for those hyperscale data centers. That's my theory. Jay, do you have any comments on that?
No, I mean, you're right on there. And I'm really concerned about this data center thing. I know how these things operate, and I know about the generators and how they get leaky, and the EPA, basically proposing to allow them to lower water quality standards. And it just seems like a disaster to me.
Yeah,
I mean, I love my technology, but man, not at the expense of the taxpayers. And when they put, serious strain on the grid, the electric companies have no choice but to build the grid bigger and, modernize it rapidly. And that can lead to a whole lot of other issues aside from the cost issues that they're not paying for. The data centers aren't going to pay for that. Ben Weber's not going to pay for that. Reineke's not going to pay for that. It's good, it's going to be the taxpayers overall, the working class, who are footing the bill for their little sweetheart deals and all their bullshit. And I know a lot of the candidates at the state level are really hammering. Casey Putsch is hammering on them. I've been watching his videos. He's pretty funny, but he's solid in truth, and he's not lying. This is a sweetheart deal between the big tech companies and these politicians, and you can chart it. It's a pattern. We did it on Marion Watch. It's a nationwide pattern. This is a pattern. They move in, they set up shop, and then they bring a whole bunch more data centers in, and it never fails. They forget to bring that part in. So they have this large coalition of multi-billionaires and millionaires that bring in a data center. And oh, by the way, now that we have, the legal right to do so, now we're going to bring in 5 more. And this is a pattern, and we can prove it. It's documented. So this is highly concerning to me. And the data centers, they don't really employ that many people. I know from working just telecommunications, I ran a contact center with just short of 1,000 employees by myself for a couple of years before, I brought somebody else on to kind of help me like an understudy. It can be done very leanly. And as long as the IT people have the experience and the background, it can be done very well. So when you have a, you know, thousands of acres of data center sucking up all these resources, and you have, I don't know, maybe 30 people probably that are employed there that are sysadmins and other, relevant skill sets, that just doesn't make any sense. It's all about the follow the money. That's always been a term at Marion Watch. Follow the money, man.
Amen. And just to demonstrate probably more convincingly than anything else that you could cite is the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, the Ohio EPA. Their mission statement is to protect the environment. Okay.
Are they
So,
doing a very good job of that?
no, they have this pending permit to allow a waiver to these hyperscale data centers that when they suck out all this water, millions of gallons every day to cool their servers, and then it's going to get polluted with any number of harmful compounds that they haven't even done studies on before they constructed all these. Well, they said it's okay if they pollute our rivers, creeks, and streams and our aquifers and just release that directly back in there without treating it because it serves an economic development purpose or a social welfare. So it's okay for them to do that. So then you look and you say, well, that's directly contrary to their mission of protecting the environment and the people of Ohio. Well, who is the director of the EPA? It's an appointed position. Who appoints them? Politicians,
Right.
elected politicians. Who are funding and own the politicians? It's ACT Ohio, it's big tech companies, it's the International Union of Operating Engineers, it's all these different the big law firms that are handling the deals, so they're getting their cut on these big data center projects. So that's why you get something like that, that you get this permit to give them a waiver to destroy Ohio when it's directly contrary to what they should be doing. So if you think that some state agency is looking out for you in your best interest. And well, you know, the EPA says it's okay. That's just like the state house is talking about putting together a commission to study data centers in the state of Ohio. And that's why when Stephen Wolf mentioned that, I called bullshit. I said, I don't trust them, because you're going to have a group of politicians who are bought off by all these special interests, and then they're going to be investigating it. Okay, I really believe that's going to end well. They're
Right.
going to bring in scientists who are bought off to give their statements to say, you know, no, this is fine. Everything's fine, you know, and then they're going to rubber stamp it and they'll put it in the media again. Mainstream media is corporatized. You've got 95% of all media outlets in this country that are owned by like 5 or 6 companies, 5 or 6 corporations. That's why the news is the same everywhere you go in this country, unless you're watching the Watchmen report or a select handful of private organizations on social media, alternative media. And then they'll say, oh, yeah, the state looked into this and everything is fine. And then your brainwashed masses, the sheeple, as I like to call them, they'll say, oh, well, they said it was fine. Scott Spears will be, oh, they said data centers are fine, man. That's what the government says, and that's what the media said. So you're just a conspiracy theorist. You're a propagandist, you know.
Yeah,
So
whatever.
that's what we're left with.
They also forget to mention that this water cooling situation, evaporative cooling, or whatever the fancy word they want to use, basically sucking water. That's not the only way that they can cool these systems. There are other ways. The problem is that it costs a lot more money.
They're expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
This can be done. I mean, largely without the environmental challenges externally, as far as sucking the water dry. Now it does require a lot of it requires the power side of it, but I'm quite frankly just appalled by the fact that the Ohio EPA has a permit in place to allow them to basically check their own balances and possibly be releasing toxins into our waterways. Our water's not that great anyway. We've gone into that ad nauseum as well. In Marion and many other places, Galleon, and we're tracking it in all kinds of counties. Like, a lot of people don't know this stuff because, quite frankly, the EPA site, it's kind of a pain in the ass. And I was talking to a friend of mine in Florida. She's been on before, Bobby. She was like, it's almost like they designed this shit to be complicated. I mean, flat out. And she does have a tech background. Everybody knows that here. And she agreed, that they should be looking at other ways of doing these things, not, cowering to the billionaires and the elites. It's sickening and highly disturbing to me.
They don't care.
Right.
They don't care. It's like that George Carlin clip. We gotta start playing some clips of Carlin, man. He's like, they don't care about you. They don't give an F. And he actually said it, but I won't say
Right.
it on the watching report because I don't want to be admonished like Damien. They don't give an F about you. It's the elite. Okay. And this crosses party boundaries. You have the illusion of choice between the Republican and the Democrat, but in reality, it's these special interests. It's the big money that owns both parties. They just give you a line of shit during the campaigns to make you think that there's a difference. But in reality, there's not much difference. That's why when I posed that question to Stephen Wolf, like, talk about conservatism and conservative principles, well, what have we conserved? What have we won on any issue? You name the issue over the past 60 years in this age of big government. Nothing. Nothing. We get all these politicians that say during the elections, well, I'm endorsed by this and I'm
Right.
Mr. Conservative or I'm Mrs. Conservative and I believe in liberty and, you know, individual rights and small government and fiscal responsibility. And then when they get elected, they do the exact opposite.
Right. That's got to stop. That must cease. People got to start making better choices. It's got to stop. They just create havoc and bigger government. And we don't need bigger government. We need smaller government. And we need to vote people into power that are for the people and from the people. And until we do so, it's just going to continue to get weirder. Believe me, we're head deep in weird at Marion Watch. That's all we look at is the crazy and all the crazy and just more crazy. And we're up to over our heads in data, and our records are approaching 3 terabytes at this time. So that being said, yeah, it's insane.
That it is. Well, this conversation could go on and on like most of our conversations here on the Watchmen's Report, but never fear, loyal viewers out there. There will be more episodes. So don't go out there and do anything crazy, anything rash, just because we're going to end the show right now. There'll be another episode. I know you need your fix of the Watchmen's Report. You got to see.
You want to
Jason
play the video before we go?
In his white outfit. Oh yeah. Jason, he put up this video. So there was another. We won't dwell on it. There was another controversy last week during Marion City Council, and then after the meeting, involving a member of the audience who addressed council and then went back to take her seat and called Sean Barr a jackass, and then subsequently denied making that statement. Well, then after the meeting, there was a confrontation outside of council chambers, and Sean Barr called this individual a stupid bitch.
Allegedly. I don't know. I wasn't there. I've been forbade from going to the council.
Allegedly, that was what this individual said, and that's what was stated,
Yeah, so our security team, you know this, you're in the group chats and stuff. Dennis, my brother, others that advise us because of the nasty rhetoric on certain, whatever they call that mode of shit, going on there and ranting and telling people to meet them on the courthouse steps and all kinds of crazy, vile rhetoric. My security team has forbidden me as of right now until it ceases. Not to attend council. So unfortunately I missed that festivity, but yeah, so we had a page member send us the video. They cropped it out for us and everything. It's beautiful. And then we added in the show that we're yammering on about. And it's in a very interesting set of circumstances.
Well, again, context though is that it was denied. It was denied that this statement was made. So here you go. Roll the clip, Jay.
Naomi Craig 363.
Actually, you're the chairman.
What's the big secret?
Yeah, I was gonna say, sorry.
Mr. Gregor, what's the big secret?
There isn't, as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, that Mr. McInnes is the agent, okay?
Okay.
So that's what it amounts to.
Okay,
So,
then
all
I guess we let the state of Ohio figure it
Okay,
out.
all right. So we have a motion on the floor. We have
A second. With a recommendation to approve.
approve. Yes, so.
We're glad you don't live here.
All right. Okay, all right.
Assertion was made, I don't think we've got to this, that you called him, what was it?
A jackass.
Yeah, did you do that?
If I said jackass, because I mulled this over in my mind, like, when did I say this during the meeting? Because I don't think that I did. If I said it after the meeting, because I turned around to Phil and was like, oh, these jackasses are going to trial, if I said jackass. I don't understand why adults call each other names. And now, I'm not going to say that I haven't, but typically, I've been responding to aggressiveness by other adults first. I don't go around just calling people names willy-nilly. I don't just pick random people out of the air and give them nicknames.
Yeah, so that's very interesting stuff there.
Yeah, so it was clear. Now I don't know the audio and the clip and whatever, but um, it was said, you know, and just don't deny it. Just disown it, you know. Now there was again discussion of the exchange afterwards, and there was police reports filed, I guess, against Sean Barr
From
and
what I'm
also
told, they
and
denied it, denied the filing of the report. I still haven't gotten a response back from MPD, and we're hearing from various members of Marion government or whatever you want to call it, that it was denied. So that might be why MPD has not responded to my request. They're usually, like I said, MPD is on the money. Whenever Marion Watch sends a record request for a police report or whatever, usually they respond that day within hours. So
could be, but if you want to talk about decorum and civility, you know, then you have to do it yourself. You know, you can't expect somebody else to treat you with respect
right.
if you don't give them respect. And that's what it boils down to. So, and if you do say something, own it. Say, yeah, I did. I called him that.
Right.
You know, don't deny it. Don't lie about it. Um, so that's kind of where we're at on that. But anyway, we went quite long here. It's almost 10 o'clock. So next week, folks, we have the um, meet and greet and candidate forum for the Republican primary candidates for Marion County Commissioner. So that's going to be held on April 7th at 6 p.m. at Calvary Bible Baptist Church on Lynn Hipsher Road. So come on out. You get an opportunity for a 30-minute meet and greet before the forum commences. You'll be able to talk with all four of the Republican candidates for Marion County Commissioner. So that would be Christy Neff, Tim Mooney, Jason Schauber, and Ken Stuyvesant. And then at 6:30, they're going to sit down for a candidate forum. So it'll be a moderated event. Pastor J.D. House will be moderating that event. We'll be asking each of the candidates a series of pre-selected questions on the hottest topics in that race. And then it'll open up for candidate or questions from the audience. So if you have a question that you want answered by one of these four commissioner candidates, then come to that event and ask them directly during the audience questions. It's an important race.
Yep.
For all the reasons that we discussed earlier in the evening. And whoever wins this Republican primary will be elected your next Marion County Commissioner to take the seat currently held by Mark Social Butterfly Davis. So we need somebody in there who is actually going to take the job seriously and to do the right thing. So come out to the event. It's sure to be insightful. And we will be broadcasting.
Yep.
So Jay and Javen will be live streaming it, I'm sure, as long as everything works and the gremlins.
I think we're going to do the same thing that we did last time. Javen is going to live stream, and I'm going to record so I can push out the full 4K video later.
Yeah, so there'll be an opportunity if you can't make it to watch it from the comfort of your home. But be sure to tune in on April 7th at 6:30. And it'll probably run till 8:30, 9 o'clock, depending on how everything goes. But it's going to be the only event,
Right.
the only opportunity for this race. And don't just vote on name recognition or some other surface level consideration. listen to what they have to say on these key issues. And again, if you have a question that's important to you, then make sure that you ask it. You either ask them during the meet and greet or you ask them during the audience questions, because
Right.
we have to do better on our side too. We can sit here and we can criticize these elected officials and these politicians, and many times they give us more than enough ammo for criticism. But if we, as members of the voting public, don't do our job on staying on top of the issues and watching what they do and demanding transparency, demanding accountability, and demanding fiscal responsibility, then we won't get it. And nor do we really deserve it if we're not doing our part. And the key in that is to stay vigilant. And that's why I always end the show with that phrase. So I'll do it here right now. So thanks again for tuning into the Watchmen's Report, and for Jason Foreman, for Damian Greenewalt, I'm Cody Higley. And remember, folks, a watchman and a citizen is always vigilant. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.
Sound the alarm!